Hello everyone, my name is Ed Helmbrecht, and I'll be demonstrating Nimsoft for service providers. Before we get started with an actual demonstration of the product, I want to cover the Nimsoft architecture to make sure everybody understands the architecture and how it plays a part from a service provider's point of view of monitoring customers and clients that you'll be deploying the product out to. So let's get started. The Nimsoft solution delivers a depth and breadth of monitoring, everything from power to network to server to database to application to cloud to storage to virtualization monitoring. Nimsoft is not a point solution. It delivers all of this monitoring out of the box. As you'll see, as the monitoring is deployed, it's measuring the performance data against thresholds to generate alerts and events, or events and faults. From that monitoring, performance and availability, reports, dashboards, trending and analysis is produced. In addition, end-user response times from the application point of view, making sure that email or web products or thick client applications are performing properly from a user's perspective. Service level agreements are easily created and deployed, as well as dashboards and reporting, all presentable in a web-based interface called Unified Management Portal. In addition, you'll notice these bi-directional integration arrows to the right and to the left of this slide. To the right, we have Service Desk products, and obviously we have Nimsoft Service Desk. We also have CA Service Desk, ServiceNow, other products like ConnectWise or HP Service Desk, Service Manager, Remedy, Salesforce, Front Range, or what used to be called Heat. Nimsoft has bi-directional integration to these products. What that means is when an event or a fault or an alarm is generated with the Nimsoft product, when a threshold is exceeded, when a device is down, Nimsoft will automatically create a service ticket in the Service Desk products here on the right hand side. More importantly though, when that Service Desk ticket is closed, it actually closes the event or the alarm within the Nimsoft product. So bi-directional integration. And that's an important feature from a service provider point of view, because if your customers have any of these Service Desk products, they can be integrated within Nimsoft. So depending on your service provider function and service that you deliver, Nimsoft might be creating tickets in your client Service Desk product as well as your own Service Desk product. On the left-hand side, we also see CMDB, because whether we have Nimsoft competitors out here on the left-hand side and those customers that you have or clients are converting from those products to a Nimsoft solution, those CMDBs are important. So as a result, Nimsoft has integration in and out of those products so that we can maintain that information that's been generated over years of monitoring. Keeping in mind that Nimsoft is a new monitoring solution, new technology, and we'll see that as we go through these slides. So looking at the Nimsoft monitoring architecture, we have three different layers that we're displaying here. The first one is our display layer, and it's all displayed on a web portal. Nimsoft, keep in mind, can be delivered in two different formats: SaaS, which is new to the industry of monitoring, as well as on-premise, which is traditionally how the product's been deployed. But you being a service provider, you have a choice. Do you want to get your arms around it? Do you want it installed in your data center, the Nimsoft server, the back-end database, and the web portal? Or would you prefer that sit up in the cloud and have somebody else back that up for you and be responsible for it and upgrade it? You've got your choice. Keeping in mind that when it's installed in your environment or up in the cloud, the data that's being collected from your clients and your customers are saved in that back end, and you're the only one who has access to it. But importantly, that web interface is multi-tenant. And what that relates to is your ability to create user accounts for your clients to log in and see those reports, those dashboards, those alerts and events, or custom dashboards that are made available to your clients so that they can see what's going on with the monitoring that you have deployed in your environment, the service that you're offering. As we saw earlier, there is third-party integration. So not only are we integrating Service Desk products, but we can integrate and launch other third-party products out of the Nimsoft Unified Management Portal. And as the third bullet reads, it is easily skinnable. And what that means is that it's very customizable as far as being able to create different skins, place your clients' logos in there, their websites, make it customizable to your client or to your business. Because we don't need to know, and your clients don't need to know, that you're using Nimsoft to monitor the solution. They just need to know that you've purchased a product that delivers performance monitoring from a proactive thresholding basis and covers all of their monitoring in one single package opposed to buying individual point solutions. Now, the second level here, or layer, is correlate and aggregate. So we have the Nimsoft hub, and that's where the software is initially installed and deployed from. It's also responsible for archiving the data and the events in a back-end data repository. And that back-end data repository can be Microsoft SQL, Oracle, or MySQL. It's also responsible for pushing out what we call robots and probes to the client environment. Or, if you're a service provider that offers hosting, it would be pushing them out to the data center where your client's servers or instances are located. But the idea is, when they push that information out, they push that information out through what we call a message bus. And that's represented here. That message bus is key to the Nimsoft functionality as well as scalability, because it's a publish and subscribe message bus. So robots and probes are published onto the message bus and pushed out to individual servers for either agent-based monitoring or agentless monitoring. Now, importantly, there are opened APIs. So as a result, APIs that allow you to integrate or create custom probes integrate through web services type integration APIs and also third-party integrations. Again, very flexible and customizable, although out of the box it comes with a lot of monitoring, a breadth and depth that isn't measurable by any other product in the industry today. And that's where the collection comes into play. Because right now we have two different servers. An agent-based server, which has what we call probes, located on each individual server to monitor things like CPU, disk, memory, scrape log files, watch services, monitor processes, restart services, restart processes, etc., etc., etc. The important part is Nimsoft has an agent-based product, and depending on your clients, if they prefer agent-based monitoring, Nimsoft can deliver that. Additionally, Nimsoft can deliver agentless monitoring. So if you have clients that have a preference to agentless monitoring, Nimsoft can deliver that as well. Because we know that your clients have their specific needs or beliefs, and you can satisfy them both with Nimsoft, as well as you can have a hybrid environment. So for example, your clients might want agents on some specific servers that require some unique detailed monitoring, but then the rest of their environment is monitored agentlessly from one host. And that's what we call agent optional monitoring. And notice there's over 180 plus probes that deliver the power, network, server, database, application, cloud, storage, virtualization monitoring, and also SDKs. And these SDKs give you, the service provider, the opportunity to create custom probes for your clients. Through those SDKs, you have different programming languages: C, Java, Visual Basic, Perl, Lua, .NET, to name a few of them. So very flexible. But also keep in mind that Nimsoft can monitor anything that you have out there. Let's hop to a multi-site deployment. Because again, now we have our primary hub. Now that primary hub is either in your data center or it's up in the cloud. There's also the back-end data repository, and there's the secondary hub for high availability or redundancy. Let's talk about that for a moment. Between the primary hub and the secondary hub, there is forwarding and replication. So they are always in sync. So if the secondary hub notices that the primary hub has failed, the secondary hub takes over that responsibility of storing the data in the back-end repository and acting on those alerts and events, sending out emails or text messages or executing scripts or running commands to take action, corrective action. Now, if we look at the different locations, we have London as a remote site and Sydney as a remote site. And we see that we have what we call a relay hub. And that's installed from the primary hub out to the remote location. And notice the SSL tunnel. Nimsoft has built-in SSL tunnel capabilities. So as a result, when that remote relay is installed from the cloud or from your data center, that SSL tunnel is automatically created through port 443 by default. Now don't get me wrong, it's customizable, so it can be any port you want. But by default we use port 443 because we make the assumption that port 443 is open coming out of the firewall for HTTPS traffic. So typically we don't have to ask the firewall administrators to make any changes to allow that connectivity to occur. And what that allows Nimsoft to do, or you, the service provider, is push out those robots and probes down into your remote locations for your clients monitoring, as well as allow the data, performance data, and the events to come back to the primary hub to be stored in the back-end data repository for alerts and events, historical trending, and to publish that information out on the web portal. So that not only your NOC center can view and act on alerts and events, but your clients have that opportunity to do that as well, segregated in a multi-tenant environment. One other note, that when this SSL tunnel is built, you'll have the opportunity to RDP, SSH, or Telnet down through that tunnel into your client's environment if they allow that functionality, saving you, the service provider, the opportunity of having to have to purchase a VPN connection or MPLS connection, a dedicated connection that's going to cost you money. So as a result, now you have the ability to log in, do break fix, if that's part of your service provider offering. One thing that I did want to bring up is a listing of some of the probes. So here's 140 plus probes covering a lot of different monitoring. Notice the SDKs here on the right hand side, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to create custom probes. Notice also the applications. You may be saying, boy, that's not a lot of list of applications that Nimsoft supports, but the idea is this is a partial list. And keep in mind that if your clients have custom apps, they have homegrown apps, Nimsoft can monitor those as well, because Nimsoft has unique probes that allow you to monitor the services running, the processes that are running on those servers, scrape log files. And this is not for just Windows operating system. It's not just for Linux. It's for Sun Solaris, HPUX, AIX, AS400s, or iSeries, IBM iSeries hosts. So again, breadth and depth of monitoring. And keep in mind that these probes are all less than 2 megabytes in disk space. So very small disk space. They'll use less than 1% of the server's CPU or resources to do their monitoring. Lightweight and nimble. And that's one of the advantages of Nimsoft, because we have the core product and then we have the probes. And it allows Nimsoft to stay on the cutting edge of technology, or better yet, you the service provider. Because you as a service provider, your clients are out there purchasing the latest and greatest Cisco equipment, Unified Call Manager, Unified Call Servers. They're purchasing EMC or NetApp or Hitachi storage devices. They're purchasing the latest VMware or Zen servers or Zen desktop technology, vBlock or FlexPod. And Nimsoft has probes to monitor all that, but what's really nice about this is Nimsoft can build a probe or enhance a probe in a matter of days, opposed to older monitoring solutions where you'd have to wait for a major release to come out in order to monitor an environment that was released by a partner vendor months ago, possibly even years ago. So obviously that's the end of the slideshow. What I'm going to do is exit out now and get into the demonstration of the live unified monitoring portal. Okay, so I brought up the Nimsoft Unified Management Portal and notice the logo in the top left-hand corner. That logo would be removed. That logo is going to be your logo as a service provider because that's what you want your clients to see when they come to the Unified Monitoring Portal. And this is whether or not it's on-premise installed in your data center or it's the cloud SaaS version. As you or your clients log in, there are different ways of presenting the data to your client opposed to your employees, opposed to different individuals within your client's organization, opposed to different individuals within your own organization. Today we're going to talk about some of those organizations. The first view I have here is an executive view. And the executive view gives you an idea of what could be presented from an executive's point of view. I'm an executive. I'm the service provider executive. I want to make sure that all of the different locations throughout the world that we're monitoring, that we're offering a service to, are performing properly. So the first thing I see is a global map. It tells me different locations throughout the world that give me the ability to navigate in order to see more detail. Of course, I can continue to navigate in order to see as much detail as I need. But from an executive point of view, I just want to make sure everything's functioning properly. I have other information pertaining to my service provider business, my sales per business unit. And I have different sales that I can present here. It's an example that you can take any information and publish it in the Nimsoft backend database and have it represented in the web portal. So from an executive view, I might want to see that. I also am keeping my eye on the Wall Street Journal and any news that might be important to me, because every morning I come in and I log into the web portal that you provide me either as a customer or that I am using from a business point of view because I'm a service provider and I want to maintain good service to my clients. I also have this chart, and this chart represents different locations throughout the world. Well, as we see, we have a network issue here in Europe or in EMEA. I can actually navigate into EMEA in order to see different locations and where the different companies are that I'm monitoring and where that fault actually exists. So it's one of those views that is completely customizable that you can provide, you as the service provider, either to your management team, your executives, or it's a view that you can provide to your customers or clients. But it's a very simple view to create and very easy to offer. And when your clients log in, all they're going to see is this one tab to give them that type of information. Now, of course, I've got another tab here, the Ops Manager's view. And from an Ops Manager's view, this is either the operations manager's view that they're seeing within your company, maybe the NOC Center manager's view, or this is the operations manager's view from your customer or client's point of view. Keep in mind, since Nimsoft is multi-tenant, they are only seeing the service level agreements, the performance charts and graphs, the events that are occurring for the monitoring that you have deployed out in their environment, or if you're a service provider that's hosting, for the hosting servers, network, architecture that you're monitoring in your hosting center that belongs to them. So the first thing we see is an SLA, because I want to make sure that the service I'm delivering is currently compliant, and I can see that it is compliant. But I also see from the pie chart that there is a certain amount that's starting to breach. My trend analysis says it will not breach at the current rate, which is great, but what's starting to degrade? So I can see, looking at the view, what's starting to degrade and what's degraded the most. In fact, in this case, it's web services. And actually, these links allow me to navigate in order to see what's being measured for my web services. And in this case, CPU load for Apache, my waiting for a connection, as well as my URL response. And it's my URL response. And in fact, I can see what's being achieved opposed to what's expected. And if I navigate in one more layer, now I actually see the amount of time that my URL response failed. I can see my threshold, which should be less than 2500 milliseconds. And if I scroll down, I'll find the individual date and times and how long it exceeded my threshold for that caused the SLA to degrade. So it gives me quite a bit of information from that point of view, or I can go back to the initial view. I also have a dashboard in the lower portion that gives me testing from several different locations throughout the world to my web services. And as you can see, going and performing a test from the user's point of view through the VPN connection, through the LAN connection, and then past my web servers, I have different events that are being generated through my application server and then through my database and storage. And depending on what I want to do and what my function is, I can actually launch the alarm view in order to see the alarms that are being generated at this back-end database. So again, the ability to navigate down to where the problem exists in order to resolve it. And again, with the Nimsoft proactive monitoring, thresholds that are being exceeded for a certain amount of samples for a certain amount of time, because the last thing we want to do is generate alarms on spikes, right? The problem has to have existed for a certain amount of time to be a valid issue. I also have my service level agreements where I can see what's compliant and what's not compliant or what's about to breach. And also from a operations management point of view, I also have income from business units to make sure that I'm properly managing or supporting the business units that may be paying my salary as well as other employees' salaries. So again, another option. How about your ops view? Now we're down to your NOC center. You're a service provider. You're offering monitoring. Now you want to see all of your individual customers. You can group these in many different ways. The majority of our customers love these badges because the badges represent different clients, or they represent different monitoring that's been deployed, or services. From that point of view, you can navigate into any of these individual views in order to see more detail. And as you navigate into the views, you have more detail walking down the hierarchy to specific components, whether they're networks, servers, applications, databases, storage devices, virtualization, even HVAC systems. We're monitoring it. And we see detailed information concerning, in this case, Cisco IOS, it's a specific router, its IP address, information, its OS description. There are no alarms currently. I see network response time. I can select spikes when these spikes occurred. I can break these out and pop them out in order to see more detailed information. I can print these out in PDF format or have them emailed on a schedule every morning at 6 a.m. I can look at different date and time ranges if I want to look at for the last week opposed to the last 24 hours. I can see that, looking for different reoccurring events. So I've got a lot of options with this product. I can go and look at alarms, which we know there are none. Look at different metrics and navigate into the net metrics. Interfaces, grab an interface. I can actually hop back to the system view and go ahead and look at its relationships. What's it connected to? And if I've got a large topology, I can see all of the connections in several different views: circular, organic, orthogonal, hierarchical. If I go ahead and select the device, I'll get information pertaining to that device. Its IP address, since it's a Cisco router, each individual IP address that's configured on it, its physical addresses, if there are alarms, I'd be able to see those. If I want to see the connection, I can go ahead and select that. It'll tell me what it's connected to. What interface, what index, what type of interface, the speed of the interface, the IP addresses. So it gives me lots of different information as I navigate through to troubleshoot the environment. And it's important to note that as I navigate through the product, I have that ability to see specific information pertaining to network monitoring, server, application, database. It just depends on what my needs are and how I want to act on them. So here's a server monitoring situation. And if I hop over to alarms, I can go ahead and select an alarm. In this case, processor queue length is exceeding its threshold, and take specific action. Keep in mind, you as a service provider, if you're doing break fix, you're troubleshooting this environment. Everything is at your fingertips through a web portal, web service. Or you can give your clients access to these same views so that they can view what's going on, view the SLAs. And in fact, we'll take a look at those. But here's where you're doing your troubleshooting. So now you can accept, assign, unassign, acknowledge, set custom notes or variables, visibility, all different types of options, create a trouble ticket as well. A lot of monitoring going on. Again, it just depends on how you break it down for you, the service provider, for your NOC Center employees. You've got a large LCD screen. You prefer to see badges that change color from green to yellow, orange, red, light blue, dark blue for performance monitoring of your clients, or what you provide to your clients. And that takes us to a customer view. Because from a customer's point of view, they're logging in and possibly seeing something like this. Their SLA compliance, their status is green, that's great. They see aging of tickets listed. They see individual tickets where if they select a ticket, they can launch that ticket and delve into it. Keep in mind that the Nimsoft Unified Management Portal, when you create logins as a service provider for your clients and customers, they're read-only. Or they could be operators, or they could be admins, or they could be super users. But there are options to make sure that, one, they can only read the data, they're not changing it. Or you can give them other options. It depends on what service you are offering them. There we go. SLA compliance is good. Our mean time to repair in minutes, 28 minutes. Tickets closed last week, 25. And then I have different reports. If I want to navigate down and again see that SLA that we were looking at earlier, I can go ahead and select that, bring up that SLA, and again navigate into the SLA in order to see its performance. Or back out, go into network monitoring or storage monitoring and see my reads per second on different storage interfaces. So no matter what your business is from a service provider, Nimsoft offers you a solution that gives you the ability to not only deploy it in a SaaS or an on-premise situation, the opportunity to monitor your clients locally within their environment, or if you're hosting in your data center, as well as a web portal that gives you as well as your clients access to different types of views and information depending on who that client is. And if you're a service provider, you can actually have service offerings depending on what you're going to offer your clients. That's a brief overview of Nimsoft from a service provider's point of view. Thank you very much for your time today. Have a great day.